All right, thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to cover creating a new service in an event-driven environment, specifically a development environment. Before we go on with our demo, let's quickly go over what we'll be doing today. First, we're going to review the application layout that we'll be working on today. It will also give us a quick overview of an event-driven system. Next, we'll set up our development environment. From there, we'll go on to create a new service called Welcome. After that, we'll emit a test event, and from there, we'll replay prod events into our development environment. Here's a quick overview of our application. As you can see, it's a simple online store. At the top, we have our services sign up, orders, and cancel. These are considered producers in the event-driven world. Basically, anytime a customer interacts with any of these services, they will emit an event down to our broker. A broker holds on to these events. It can be anything from RabbitMQ, Kafka, or Amazon SQS. After an event is emitted and placed onto the broker, we have another set of services called consumers. These consumers in our sample application are called shipping, analytics, and inventory. Basically, they take messages off of the queue and then do some kind of action based on them, such as send a shipping order off or populate our analytics with the latest amount of orders. Okay, now that we have an overview of our application and the basics of event-driven systems, let's talk about the challenges that event-driven systems face. Non-event-driven environments typically have a prod database and a development database. The development database is usually an obfuscated copy of production data. This makes it very easy to develop against and test all scenarios. In event-driven systems, you have a limited set of data to work with. You must develop against a broker, which can be considered a black box by many. The lack of test data can create an unsafe development workflow where developers are tempted to consume live data off production environments. So what's the solution to this problem? Data lakes. Data lakes can archive all events that come off of the broker. From there, they can be indexed and easily searched. After that, you can develop your own code to replay data into your dev environment and test various messages against your services. All right, now it's time to move on to setting up our development environment. The first thing we'll do is pull down the GitHub repo I set up earlier. You can find it under Batch Corp Rabbit Demo. Go ahead and CD into the Rabbit Demo directory. Let's take a look at our Docker Compose file. You can see here we spin up a simple broker of RabbitMQ. Let's go ahead and bring that up now. All right, we can see that Rabbit is up and running. Let's go ahead and confirm that everything is working properly. The default username and password will be guest. And we can see there's no exchanges or queues other than defaults. All right, that looks good. The next thing we need to do is generate some fake production data. The idea here would be to simulate what you'll see on your production RabbitMQ. Let's go ahead and do that now. Go into the repo that you pulled down earlier, and you can see we have a script here called populate data. What that's going to do is connect to your local Rabbit. It's going to connect to an exchange called event. So let's go ahead and create that. Select type of topic, and we'll leave the rest default. All right, let's go ahead and run populate data. All right, we see that JSON was sent. And if we go to overview, we can see that we have 97 messages ready and waiting in our queue called welcome. So now that we have a view of what production data would look like, how can we examine this data and figure out how to develop around it? In this example, we're going to use console.batch as our data lake, and we'll relay the messages out of the rabbit queue into our collection at batch. You can use any data lake you like for this. I use batch obviously because 1, I work for them, and 2, I think it's the simplest way to work with message brokers and examine data. All right, so what we need out of batch is our secret token. We want to go back into our repo that we cloned down earlier, and we want to look in the plumber directory. Specifically, we'll look for relay. Now we need to go and change our relay token over to the secret token stored in the batch data lake. So we'll go to collections, collection I made earlier, and we'll copy the secret token. All right, the token's been added. The next thing we need to do is download Plumber, which is Batch's open source relay. You can also do quite a few other things that are useful for event buses. So let's take a look on how to do that. If you go to Batch Corp Plumber, you'll see you can either brew install it, or you can go ahead and just curl down the binary or manually install it from the download section. In my case, it's already installed, so we'll skip that step. Next thing we need to do is relay the messages. So we'll just run it. We can see it's connected to our RabbitMQ. Let's go back into the repo, and we'll generate the test data again. All right, we can see there are 97 events collected and written. So let's take a look at one of these. And basically what we're going to do here is examine the structure of the messages and figure out how to write the service that we're going to work on today, which is a welcome email service. So we can see every payload has a type. In this case, this is exactly what we want. We want the create account type. And then maybe we want our welcome email to welcome them by name. So in this case, we'll want the name section. We'll need the email to know who to email. And maybe we'll mention something about their friends. And that's it. So the other thing that's really important that Batch does is it stores the RabbitMQ metadata. So we know the routing key. So we know all messages of create account are going to be able to be grabbed from Rabbit under that specific routing key, which makes our job a lot easier. So now let's move on to connecting our development environment up to a test queue. And then we'll copy one of these messages and emit it into Rabbit and just confirm it works. And then we'll run all our production messages, our simulated production messages, into Rabbit. The first step is to get a copy of one of the create account messages, specifically the payload here. So we'll copy that. And what we'll do is we'll go into our Rabbit and we'll find our event exchange, which is where the messages in our simulated production go to. We've pasted the payload in, and if you recall, there's a metadata section here that gives us the routing key the message was received on. So let's go ahead and add that. Great. So now we have a really simple way to just test a basic message and develop our service against the Rabbit broker. So let's go back to our repo we pulled down earlier. We're gonna pull up our Rabbit demo. I'm gonna use VS Code in this example. And you can see there's a file in here called welcome.py. Let's take a quick look. Basically at the bottom here, we're connecting to our development Rabbit. We're declaring a queue called welcome email. And we're listening on the Exchange event and the routing key that we discovered through our metadata. And then we're calling a function to format an email. We have an example down here that we're not going to cover in this demo, but you can see this is how you would connect into Amazon SES if you wanted to send an email. And there's some example code down here if you want to take the demo further. For now, we're just going to take the message, confirm we can get the customer name, customer email, and the friends list from our example message. So let's go ahead and run the service. All right, our demo service is now running and it should be listening on the queue welcome email, and I can see it there. So what we need to do is go back to our Exchange. Plug the routing queue in. Let's copy a payload. Let's publish it. So our message went out to the various queues. We can see we have nothing waiting in welcome anymore. And there we go. We just printed out the customer name, email, and their friends. So you can see why this is pretty important. You want this dev RabbitMQ because if I do publish something to events in production, I'm going to end up firing test code against production events. Possibly, if my code is pulling from the wrong queue, I could be stealing messages from other services within the production configuration. So the next thing we want to do is run a bunch of the production events we generated earlier against this code and see if we get any errors. So let's go back to our repo and we'll go into Plumber Dynamic. What this is going to do is make a source within our batch data lake console, and it's going to connect to the Exchange event, and it's going to push messages with this routing key. But first we need to get an API token. So let's go to our demo user, security, copy the token. We'll make another terminal, cd to plumber, execute plumber dynamic, and if everything is correct, we should see a new destination show up. Let's run that. And there we go. We have a new destination. We're going to go back into our collection. And we're going to replay the results of this collection. We'll call this welcome email. We're going to send it to our dynamic plumber. And we're just going to do this one time. Let me make sure. Let's kill our relay so we're not creating a loop of messages. back into our data lake. And you can see here just how easy it is to replay production events into your development environment when you're using the batch data lake. If you go with another data lake, you'll have to do quite a bit of customization to make something like this work. Let's take a look at our code. And it looks like it looped through all of our test events and collected all the data we need. So basically, all we did was go into all the events that our data lake had saved, and we said, replay them all into our demo rabbit. And then we confirmed our code worked. From here, you can continue to develop on your app and safely know that when you deploy to your production on the production RabbitMQ, things will work correctly. All right, in conclusion, we created a development environment that we could safely test data against. We used Docker and spun up our own RabbitMQ broker. Then we sent simulated production events to our data lake at Batch.sh. We found a sample event due to the observability within the data lake. Then we replayed all our production events into our new service and confirmed there were no errors. All right, that concludes the demo. Please check us out at Batch.sh. There's a little live chat there. If you have any questions, we're always happy to help. If you need help getting set up with anything, we will definitely do that for you. Also, please check out Plumber at GitHub. I think it's really neat. You'll see the link in the description. You can use that with pretty much all message brokers. So if your team's working with Rabbit, Amazon SQS, Google's messaging system, Kafka, you can interact, write messages, read messages, relay messages, replay messages with Plumber. And last, if you have any questions, feel free to email me, Fritz at Batch.sh, or hit up our support at Batch.sh. All right, thanks.